Good evening, everyone. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have roll call, please?
Supervisor McGlasson?
Here.
Councilwoman Campbell?
Present.
Councilman Toupori?
Here.
Councilman Ruthven is not present.
It's not coming.
Councilman Boyd?
Here.
Okay.
Thank you. I make a motion to open the public hearing for the Lake Carmel Fire Department fire engine leasing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we opened this a couple weeks ago now, and tonight we are going to pass this so that they can lease the fire truck. Any board comment? Any public comment? No one's here for this. I know Bill is. Bill, anything to say on the fire truck? Okay. Do we have another resolution for this?
Good evening. Bill Walters from Lake Carmel Fire Department. We're here tonight to close the public hearing for the purchase and, not sale, for the purchase of a new piece of fire apparatus that we're going to be taking in late October, early November. This is for leasing agreements. This is to meet our IRS requirements. And this is for, let me make sure I get the right page. This notice was given to the town of Kent, located at 25 Sybil's Crossing, Kent Lakes, New York, to allow the public comments on September 3rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. for the Lake Carmel Fire Department, Inc., for the purpose of holding a public hearing pursuant to the requirements of Section 147F, the Internal Revenue Code from 1986, and amend the proposal user enter into an agreement to finance certain equipment. The equipment being financed consists of one new custom Marin pumper truck, which would be maintained at the main fire station in Carmel, New York. Financing costs, such equipment and paid cost, expense will be financed. The insurer proposes to enter into a loan agreement with a maximum aggregate proposal amount not exceeding $1,188,662. The user will be required to pay all taxes on the equipment. The rental payment due to pursuant to the loan agreement will be secured by a security interest on the equipment. All persons interested need to attend the town board meeting, 25 Sybil's Crossing, and to be heard and said at the time and place filed by the Lake Carmel Fire Department. That was what the public notice says. The price of the apparatus, we can't afford to save that kind of money up to go out and buy apparatus anymore. This is our first time we've been leasing apparatus because it makes financial sense to do that. We have a lot of apparatus that needs to be replaced. We're looking at possibly downsizing some of the fleets due to the age of some of the equipment. The truck that this is going to replace is already 36 years old. So NFPA says they're supposed to replace with a maximum of 20 years. We've done the refurbishing on some of the apparatus to get a 10 or 15 years out of it, make it last a little bit longer. We've done that to two pieces of apparatus, and we've gotten that out of that. They now need to be replaced. And that's what we're doing here tonight. So, to go into an agreement with the leasing company. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question before you go, if you don't mind. I'm just trying to understand how this financial arrangement works, if it's a lease, but in the end, you're talking about an aggregate principal exceeding a certain amount. So you're paying a certain amount every year, and then at some point,
Yes.
it becomes the department's? Or
Correct.
it goes back to the...
No, we pay a certain percentage every year, and at the end, I believe it's 10 years, we have the opportunity to purchase it outright.
And so at that time, you would have to raise a substantial amount of funding to complete that
We-
purchase, right?
We allocate a certain amount of funds every year to put towards apparatus. We've been doing that from day one. The numbers keep rising up every year. And now, since COVID, the price of apparatus have gone skyrocket. They're out of control. With everything, they're out of control. So, yeah.
And so what's the annual cost for this? What will the department be paying each year?
I think it's $135,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other board comment? Public comment? Do you want to read the resolution? Got it?
What, Lana, what number is the resolution?
Oh,
It-
Lana
it's-
fills
it's
that in
not-
after.
Oh, okay, good.
You're going to close the.
Oh, I make a
public
motion to
hearing.
close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to approve a resolution for the Lake Carmel Fire Department to enter into a financing agreement. Whereas pursuant to Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code, the Town Board of the Town of Kent held a public hearing on September 3rd, 2024, whereby the public was invited to attend and be heard on the proposal of the Lake Carmel Fire Department, Inc., LCFD, to enter an agreement to finance a new custom Marion pumper truck. And whereas the Town Board of the Town of Kent wishes to approve the LCFD entering into an agreement for the financing of the Marion pumper truck, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Kent hereby approves the LCFD entering into an agreement to finance one new custom Marion pumper truck in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $1,188,662 to be located at the firehouse of the Lake Carmel Fire Department, Inc., and be it further resolved that the town supervisor is authorized and directed to execute any documentation necessary to give effect to this resolution, including, without limitation, the Section 147F approval and written agreement, a copy of which is annexed hereto and hereby incorporated herein. I make that motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Our first item tonight is for our highway department. I invite our highway superintendent, Richie Othmer, up here to discuss a policy that he would like to pass.
Hello, everyone. I have two things on the agenda for tonight. Number one is what we spoke about at the last meeting, the spoils policy adoption. And we sent it out the next morning because I know everyone didn't have a copy at the last meeting. But basically, when I was up at Highway School in Cornell this year, they recommended that, the legal panel recommended that towns adopt this policy because our whole town, basically 70% watershed. We are constantly monitored by the DEP and the DEC, and we have to pay to get wood chips out if we exceed a certain amount. A lot of people burn firewood. We're taking down dead trees constantly, and so on and so forth. Extra fill, clean fill I have. This summer I had some millings I brought to some residents, and stuff that we can't store that would have to otherwise pay to get rid of. This policy would, every highway superintendent in the state already does it. This just, it's a policy, you know, so it's all in order. So if anyone asks any questions, and I ask that you guys approve this, so, you know, it's in effect and it, you know, makes it 100% legitimate. Any questions from anyone?
Any public comment?
I was reading the spoils for the Adirondacks, and I was just wondering if you have the dirt that you were just talking about, is it tested?
Well, native dirt that I dig up on regular jobs, I'm not gonna get it tested. I don't have the money to do it, and it's clean dirt.
But you're saying that the public can come in and get that dirt and use it for them?
No, if I'm digging a pipe job by your house or widening a road or whatever, and I dig out dirt and then you have a little area you have to fill in, as long as it's within the, what do you call that, Bill? You can't bring more than 100 yards of material to any one spot. So, you know, anything above that, it says it in the policy, you'd have to get a permit from the town board and so on, but I'm not going there.
Right, because then it would have to be tested.
Yeah, this is just for.
This is just a little.
100 yards is about 5 truckloads, so that's what you can legally do.
So somebody could come in, they're gonna go pick up that 5 yards? And is this from a work around just our town or from all over the areas?
This is just town of Kent.
Just town of Kent?
Yeah, if I'm working down the street from your house and I have a load of dirt, you know, whatever, and you want it for a retaining wall.
But, yeah, but you're not gonna get me 5 loads.
Well, if you want 5 loads, I could.
I'm just saying, but that's when I would think that they have to have it tested when they bring it in.
Yeah, I'm not going that,
Okay,
that
and
far.
then you have private property that you could store this on? What-
It says that that's like a standard template that they use. We're talking, the only place I store it right now is in the Rescue Road at the bottom, but we have the new 9 acres next to our property that we are in the process of developing right now because I had to get DEC permits for that.
Okay.
We're gonna build bins. You know, it's not a real lot, but sometimes, you know, if somebody sees a Town of Kent truck on, you know, Joe Schmuckatelli's house, and they're saying, oh, you know, Richie's bringing,
Yeah, that's
you know,
the
Richie's
question.
bringing, he's giving away town property, it makes it legitimate.
Okay, but I thought it said that nobody, that the people are responsible for themselves to come get it.
No, that's been amended, Jamie, right? It's been amended.
So people can apply for, if it's over a certain amount, but they'd have to get a permit from the town in order to do that. Generally speaking, this is going to be things that the people come themselves to the highway department to pick
To
up.
pick up, right.
Or if we're working in their neighborhood,
No.
instead of me driving halfway
Yeah.
across town, dump it, you know, in
Okay.
your yard.
All right,
But it's basically been wood chips and firewood, and recently millings. People want it for their parking spaces and,
all right, thank you.
okay, that's number one. Number
Wait,
two
hold on,
is,
let's vote on it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's no more public comment? Okay. Does someone want to read that? Resolution?
Make a motion for a resolution approving the Town of Kent soil and scrap material policy. Town of Kent, let's skip that part. Whereas the town board wishes to establish a policy for the removal of spoils and scraps such as are defined in the Town of Kent spoils and scraps material policy, a copy of which is annexed hereto and hereby incorporated herein. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the Town of Kent hereby adopts the Town of Kent spoils and scraps material policy, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution and the policy be placed in the office of the town clerk. I make this motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
thank you very much.
And now, you want to add an item tonight, correct?
Yes, I asked for additional items to the agenda. If you'd approve that.
What are we adding? Just the revocable license agreement?
The revocable license agreement. On Terry Hill Road North, there's a house in Lake Carmel, and this is the third residence I've been dealing with on Terry Hill Road North. When they built Lake Carmel, the roads were never properly surveyed and conveyed. So dealing with Inside Engineers and Nick Chappis, who's kind of like the surveying expert for Putnam County, he always told me that when I come into a conflict with a road right-of-way and a private owner, the private owner survey takes precedence over the roads, because the roads were never laid out. People, you know, it was a bedroom community, and people came up on weekends and built their little cottages, and so, you know, and they kind of guesstimated where it went. So most of Terry Hill Road, the road is not where it's supposed to be. The road is actually 2 feet away from their front door. There's one person here, let me pronounce the name properly, Omid Demo. They took down the old stone retaining wall that's been there probably since 1932, and they built a new, really nice retaining wall. And Bill, you're familiar with this? Bill went out, he was the one that notified me, the building inspector. It's actually on town property, but it's the man's front yard, and the road is about 15 feet off to where it should be. So this revocable trust, you guys did this on Gray Oaks Court last year. It basically allows the people to have the retaining wall in place. It's to benefit to our town because there's no parking on Terry Hill Road North, and it helps get the cars off the road. They did a real good structurally sound job, and I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of the retaining walls in Lake Carmel that were built, original walls, are all starting to fall down now. So I think you're going to be running into this situation more and more as time goes on. So do you have to add, or?
I was just going to say, so the revocable license provides that the retaining wall can stay as built. If in the future they ever wanted to build a new retaining wall, they would have to build it within their property lines, or they'd have to come back in front of your board, and it's revocable. So at any point in time, if the town decided that that retaining wall was in the way of the highway or highway maintenance, you could require them to remove it. But it just gives them permission for it to remain as is for the time being.
Do we have to vote to add this to the agenda?
But one, real quick, Rich, I know exactly what you're talking about. Wasn't that hill in danger of collapsing
Yes.
onto North Terry Hill along with the house if they hadn't replaced the wall? I
Yes.
know what the wall, it looks like you could park a tank there, that the tank's not gonna go through it.
Yeah, they did a nice job. It's a good-looking job, too, so, I mean, if, by the time that thing falls down, we're all gonna be dead a long time.
Speak for yourself.
So I make a motion to add an item to the agenda about the revocable license agreement.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now someone can.
You're gonna
Any
make
other
me
We
read
didn't
questions?
add it to the agenda, so we have to add it, and now we can vote on it.
Okay.
So you guys are gonna make me read it because I'm good with names, aren't you? All right, I'll try.
I just needed to know what I'm reading.
Oh, here.
It's the last one, I wasn't sure,
Don't mind?
in your package.
It's not my last page.
Okay. Do you want mine?
Yeah, it is that one right
Okay, second last. All righty. So I make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing a revocable license agreement with Saluma Moorshed. Whereas Saluma Moorshed are the owners of premises situated in Lake Carmel, known as 244 North Terry Hill Road, Kent Lakes, or Carmel, New York, designated as tax map number 33.41-1-11, the premises on the Town of Kent assessment roll, and whereas the premises fronts on North Terry Hill Road, a town road, and whereas Mr. Moorshed constructed a retaining wall within the town's right-of-way, and whereas the town highway superintendent has opined that the retaining wall does not obstruct North Terry Hill Road, and that it is in the best interest of the town for the wall to remain, and whereas the town wishes to grant a revocable license to Mr. Moorshed to permit the retaining wall to remain subject to the terms of such license agreement, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Kent hereby authorizes the town supervisor to execute a license agreement with Mr. Moorshed in a form suitable to the town supervisor and the town attorney, consistent with the foregoing, and to execute any and all documents, other documents as may be necessary to give full effect to this resolution. I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We're good.
Just one quick thing. September 18th, we are moving into Lake Carmel for paving, so we're going to have about 2 weeks of chaos. There's 12 roads we're doing. We're going to be milling and paving, but it's going to take us about 2 weeks, so hopefully I'm out by the end of the month.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Next item is, we have been going through our contracts to make sure everything's up to date, and we have realized that we don't have a contract of proposals for our videographer. So I am asking tonight that we go for proposals. Comment? Okay. Someone can read it.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the town clerk to advertise requests for proposals for a videographer. Whereas the town board wishes to advertise that it is seeking proposals for videographers for town meetings, and now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Kent hereby authorizes its town clerk, Yolanda D. Capelli, to advertise for requests for proposals for videographers for town meetings. I make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Our next item is what I'm sure everyone's here for tonight, is the short-term rentals. So I'm going to start this conversation by saying that bringing this up wasn't the town board wanting to go out and start short-term rentals in Kent. Short-term rentals have already been an issue in the town of Kent, but we have absolutely no regulations. Bill gets phone calls for them, they come in front of the judges, and no one can do anything about it because there's nothing to regulate them. So that's why this whole conversation started. I've gotten a lot of emails against it, and people are very angry and thinking that we're trying to introduce this to the town of Kent. When we're not trying to introduce it to the town of Kent, the reality is that it's already here. So we're trying to come to some sort of common ground so that we can somehow regulate it and make everything work. I don't know how, but we're gonna start the conversation tonight. I don't know if the board wants to say anything first, or if we should just let people come up to speak, and and voice their concerns on it. When you do come up to the microphone, please make sure that you state your name. And so we'll.
Kevin will speak. Owens? Oh, just to say, if they get
I
any
don't
calls
think-
ready.
I don't think Kevin wants to say anything on it.
All right.
Kevin, do you have anything you want to say on short-term rentals?
Or lack of enforcement right now. Do you get calls for them?
Yes.
Then you, basically, you guys are powerless to do anything, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, otherwise you can hear.
He's coming up.
Kevin Owens, Town of Kent Police. So we do get calls on them and have gotten calls. It's not that we're powerless, because if they break the law, obviously we can. Most of it is a civil agreement between the landlord and the people they've rented to. So if they do damage there, they have insurance. If they do damage to a neighbor's house, that's a criminal offense. So we could do something and act on that. But aside from that, they're mostly noise complaints or parking complaints or littering. Those are the types of calls that we get. Most of them are solved with a warning, like, hey, you're out of control, keep it down. But sometimes they spill over and are more and are annoying to the neighbors or surrounding area. But that's pretty much the extent of it. We haven't had any crazy big party ones in a while. Before, when the Airbnb thing first started, there was a lot of times where kids would rent an Airbnb and have like a giant party. We did have a couple of those maybe like 10 years ago, but we haven't had any of those recently. Now they've kind of cracked down on it. You have to have ID and some other forms where they verify who the person is renting. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome to come up and speak. You just have to come up to the microphone so that you can be heard.
I just say, I don't want to be rude, but it seems to me.
You have to just come up to the microphone because no one can hear you unless you're at the microphone.
My name is Mary DeBourbon, D-E-B-O-U-R-B-O-N. It just seems to me, as a practical matter, that if the conduct now is against the town code, you can issue a summons in violation of the town code. If the town code all of a sudden accepts this and legalizes the bad conduct, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. If all of a sudden people wanted to, I don't know what, start a country fair in the middle of town or do, I don't know what. You can't, when the conduct is prohibited, you shouldn't go say, oh, well, everybody's doing it, let's make it legal. That's all I have to say. I just think it's backwards.
But that's not what we're saying, to make it legal.
Well,
We're
you're
trying
saying we'll regulate it, right?
Because, Bill, Bill's our building inspector, so
Hi, Bill.
he's the one that gets the phone calls.
Bill Walters, Building Inspector, Town of Kent. We do get complaints about Airbnbs, short-term rentals, whatever name you want to put on them. We've had some, not recently, but within the last year or so, where some of the occupants got out of control.
Right.
And the fire department had to be respond and take care of things. We do have a regulation that goes back to about 1986 that says no boarding houses and stuff like that. But it's difficult to enforce the new direction that the people have going into Airbnbs. They want every law now to be very specific. They want it to say Airbnb. They want it to say Venmo. Whatever the abbreviation is for rental, they want the law to say that specifically.
To accommodate their breaking the law.
But if it doesn't say that, it's a gray area, and the courts are hands are drawn. They can't. It's difficult for the courts to enforce.
Right.
So that's the issue that we have. Bill Looney, our zoning officer, has been issuing these type of violations for a number of years.
Right.
Okay, and he has a couple cases that are in front of the judge now because the judge knows that the town is entertaining this thought, and it's all it is right now is a thought. It's not a law yet. So some of those cases that are pending, waiting to find out what the town's going to do, okay? we still have it, and we just need, what direction are we going to go in? Because right now, it's difficult to enforce.
Right. I don't, with all due respect, making it legal or making it
You have to,
Just so the TV.
making it permissible with certain clearly defined regulations means that the gentleman who just spoke is still going to be responsible for enforcing those regulations. And so that's my only point. I think that making it permissible, even with strict regulations, doesn't mean people are going to abide by the regulations, and this gentleman will have to enforce it. But moreover, it's generally will be a nuisance. And my view is it's going to ruin the character of this town, because you're going to have a lot of people who want to make money. I have a person in my community who's never there, who rents out every single weekend to a different group. And people paying what he is charging want to party, and it's a real nuisance. And I think speculators will come in, just as people are saying, and it's just asking for more problems for the police, the town, the sanitation district, you name it, it's going to be worse. And the flushing and the rest of it into the lakes is criminal. So that's my only point. Sorry. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nina Charnoff, and I spoke the last time, you had an open forum for discussing it. And the only reason I'm up here again is that since the first time I was at a town board meeting and this issue was open to the public, I have discovered that many of the communities that are in Kent, especially and primarily the ones that have lakes that they take care of and are stewards of, are very, very upset about the concept of even having it on the books that short-term rentals are allowed, even if they're regulated, because we do feel that it is an extra burden that is almost impossible to, control if you allow short-term rentals and then say, but they must be done within these guidelines. There's such an easy way to break a lot of those guidelines. And what I think that needs, from what I'm hearing, I don't think I realized that the town doesn't have specific laws on the books that you can enforce. I thought there was a regulation that less than 30 days was enforceable. But am I correct that I'm hearing it's not?
yes.
So that is a problem. So the step that I would take, knowing that about 2/3 of the town don't want this, is to just strengthen the laws on the books against any rentals less than 30 days.
I think it's more than 2/3 that don't want it. I get the emails on the phone.
So I just wanted to say one of the reasons I'm up here is that we have a letter to the board that's been signed by people from 7 different communities. Some are official representatives, some are individuals that live in a lake neighborhood, but they don't have a homeowners association, but they know that the people in their neighborhood don't want it. So I just want to, give this to, you might have it because.
I have a couple, but if you want to give it to Lana, that way.
I'll give it to her.
She has, the town clerk has
Okay.
it, but
All
I
right.
do have it.
All right, so that was my main, and I want to reiterate my offer to be on any kind of working group for you, with you, because this is a thorny situation, and I see that it really needs to be tightened up one way or another, and I am offering you my services.
Thank you.
Hi, folks. My name is Getz Obstfeld, and I'm here today speaking as the president of the Lake Sagamore Community Association. Lake Sagamore is a community of around 75 homeowners. We're all taxpayers, voters, living here in Kent. And I'm registering to formally, I'm speaking today to formally register our community's very strong opposition to these proposed zoning changes about short-term rentals. I know you've already received quite a few letters from residents in our community and from other communities objecting to these changes, and it's because we really cherish our lake and our community. We spend a huge amount of resources, our money, our time, our effort, to keep our lake clean. And we're proud to claim that it's one of the cleanest, we think, in the Putnam County. We work hard to create a sense of community among our neighbors, and the letters that you've received, and I hope that you've had a chance to read them, describe how this proposed short-term rental plan that is so far being considered could really endanger the health of our lake by introducing invasive plants, invasive microbes, because people that just come to spend a weekend, they just they really not understanding the sensitive ecology of a lake, and they have no stake in it. No matter how many rules you put in the fine print of any kind of rental agreement. Moreover, the sense of security and safety that we feel from knowing and trusting our neighbors gets replaced with a new set of strangers every weekend. And that feeling, that reality of safety that we have would be lost. We know that most short-term renters are going to be polite and try to follow the rules, but the actual experience of communities that have short-term renters tells a different story. And every so often, like the policeman and the code enforcement says, is you get folks that don't understand, they just don't have the understanding of what the sensitive lake ecology that we have. They may not care about introducing invasive plants. They maybe overcrowd and stress the septic system, which can introduce bacteria. They park on our we have a very narrow road, a dirt road in our community, and they park on the road and block emergency vehicles. So this town, with our abundant lakes and our easy access to New York City, just an hour from the city, is really a perfect place for weekenders that might access a place through Airbnb and other short-term rental booking agencies. And as the first speaker described, the zoning change that's being proposed would turn this trickle of Airbnb rentals that now are mostly under the radar. Every once in a while they float up when you have a troublesome tenant. It'll turn into a flood of investors who see the $300, $400, $500 a night fee that people are paying, that people are charging now, as a real investment opportunity. And so instead of the single-family district that we have, and that we all bought into, our community has become a hotel district, and which really violates the intent of the zoning laws. The experience of every other community that allows short-term rentals like Airbnb shows that there are few community benefits, a lot of detriments from increased rental prices, and we have a very meager stock of rental housing that's important for some folks in this town. And the rental price goes up astronomically because landlords can charge a lot more than a normal one-year rental by charging on the weekend. So our single-family homes will turn into investment real estate owned by absentee owners. We know that there are short-term rentals right now in Kent, as you've said. There's not that many, but they exist. The question is, what should be done, right? The town could leave it as status quo, which means maintaining this complaint-driven system. When you have a complaint, you deal with it. If there's no complaint, you don't worry about it. When you get a complaint, the zoning inspector goes out, and if appropriate, issues a violation that could lead to a fine if as a violation of the zoning code. And if the law is not clear, I thought that the law was clear that, or at least the precedent that the courts have interpreted the current law, which says boarding houses are not permitted in single-family zones, is interpreting it as 30 days. Anything less than 30 days is a violation of the code. If that's not clear, it seems like an easy fix. I'm not an attorney, but it seems like an easy fix to just say nothing less, no short-term rentals less than 30 days are permitted in the town of Kent. And we made it clear. But if this problem increases or is not manageable, then the town could increase the fines that are generated from this complaint-driven system. And so it's not just the cost of doing business, but the fines are significant enough for people to not rent their houses for shorter than a month. And if the town wants to get even more proactive in stopping this, you could pass a regulation forbidding any booking services, and booking services like Airbnb, VRBO, or real estate agents, licensed real estate brokers, from advertising short-term rentals less than 30 days. If you look on the website, there's a specific description of what is allowed, and if a booking service like Airbnb tries to advertise or allows a host to advertise their place for less than 30 days, then the town could fine Airbnb. That is what is actually proposed in the state legislation. And that alone, by eliminating the possibility or the legality of booking services from advertising anything less than 30 days, that could eliminate maybe 95% of the short-term rentals. And the only short-term rentals that you might have would be the ones that are word of mouth, which we've always had, and rarely with a negative impact. Finally, I just wanted to mention that, as you know, as mentioned the last time I was here, there's a state law that was passed by the legislature, but not yet signed by the governor, or at least it wasn't a couple weeks ago. It was passed in June, and I don't know if the governor is going to sign it, but if the governor signs it, then the town of Kent has three options. One option is to specifically state, we don't want to participate in this, we want our 30-day rule to stand, and we don't want to participate. The second option is to create your own regulations. Third option is to accept the state regulations, which are even weaker than the ones that you proposed. And so I would suggest that you stiffen this 30-day rule so that it's clear and judges can rely on it, and make yourself, and if the law passes at the state and is enacted, that you exempt the town of Kent from those the state rules and maintain a 30-day rule for any kind of rental.
Hello, my name is Diane Waller. I live on Barrett Pond in Carmel, and I'm here speaking on my own behalf, although I'm a member of a homeowners association that has submitted a letter that all the points of which I reiterate. I thought the gentleman from Lake Sagamore did a great job, and so all I want to say is that we were one of the people who experienced, a big party. I live on a lake, and there was a home that was rented out maybe by, through Airbnb or one of those similar services, and all of a sudden on a holiday weekend, and these lakes are small, by the way, in Kent, about 20-something showed up, and they partied, day and night for, Labor Day weekend or one of those weekends. And so we had at the time a land use and zoning lawyer who's very well known, who looked up the regulations, and I just want to say that my memory of this is she was pretty clear that this was against the law in the town of Kent. So we called that homeowner, and it never happened again. Now, so it really is no matter if you feel that it's difficult to enforce it. Just know that some of us actually think that there actually is this law that you mentioned. It should be interpreted in a way to prohibit short-term rentals. So the only other points I want to make, to keep it short and sweet, is that the lakes in this town are very small. Sound travels. So one house that has all of these short-term renters, everybody's going to hear it, even across the lake. So that's one thing. Also, in our community, which is the Sedgwood Club community, we have people who share docks. They have common rights of way. So if you have a home that has all of these different renters, every day or every week they're going to come down to their common dock and have to share it with people that they don't know, a whole different crowd every week, which I think is sort of really unappealing. And I have to say, now that I understand your intent, I see you're just trying to structure this, but I'd say for the most part, people who live in this community will feel that their houses have been devalued, because one day you're living in a peaceful community and the next day you're living next to a hotel. And if this were to be written in such a way that permitted this, I think that we would all be considering a tax cert action to lower our taxes, which would lower the tax base in Kent, which I don't think, people want. So anyway, but now I understand that you're trying to figure out what to do, but you hear our concerns. You come here for peace and quiet, and, this would just radically change the whole community. And the environmental factors, they are all good reasons as well. So thanks for letting me speak. And I'm just going to give a copy of my letter.
Thank you. Do you want to speak on the legality of just to give that side of it?
Yes, so it was our argument as well, is that short-term rentals are not currently permitted. However, our argument is going in front of justices who are concerned that the code is not as clear. And that is what this town board is trying to deal with and structure in a way. And the board hasn't made any determinations on it. We put together a first draft local law that was a way to regulate these short-term rentals and regulate them in a way that a lot of short-term rentals would not be permitted. It would be highly regulated based upon bedroom count, septic capacity, parking, things that have been a concern to many municipalities. But the board has not made any determinations on that code, and that's why they're seeking feedback from the public. But it has been our argument that they aren't currently permitted. But as you heard from Mr. Walters, the justices have had concerns on whether or not that code reading is accurate. Our town justices that make those final determinations. Because we can issue complaints and we can go in front of the judges, but at the end of the day, we're making a legal argument and they're going to make a determination. And the other issue with it is that currently, as the code stands, you have certain violations for the daily practices of a short-term rental, but if you're making $400 a night, it might be worth the cost of a business to continue that despite having a violation outstanding. So those are all issues that this board is taking into account in making a final determination, which, as I said, no determination has been made to date. They're looking to hear input from the public in order to move forward with that.
So I'm Diane Waller again. I have one more point. I'm getting old, so I forgot, but it's an important one. The way our community is set up, the Sedgwood Club, we have, it wasn't begun as a community, so our homeowners association, our club association, they're optional, they're not mandatory. So we are unable, I believe, to opt out. If you give the right to like a homeowners association to opt out, we wouldn't be able to necessarily enforce it. So I think that's an important point when you're considering how you write this. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Gerald Matlin. I live at the Sedgwood Club. I'm not going to review all the things that have been said already tonight. They're all correct. I'm going to attack this from a little different point of view. Somebody who's a longtime friend of mine once said that something was an accident looking for a place to happen. I think that's what this ordinance is. If I understood what the police chief said, it doesn't seem to be a major problem. It was a much bigger problem maybe 10 years ago. And I think after reading the ordinance that you may have to hire a second building inspector because he's going to be up to his ears with all the regulations and rules that are put forth in this ordinance. I think there are portions of the ordinance that have not been carefully thought out. For instance, I think there are two types of renters. I'm sorry, two types of landlords. One is a landlord who is advertising to rent out a bedroom for a few days. And the other is the landlord who's advertising to rent his house for a few days. Two completely different situations. If the landlord is living in the house, you have a couple that the children are grown, they could use the extra income, and they're saying, you know what, why don't we rent out our extra bedrooms for the weekend? We can pull in some extra income, which will be good. Well, they're living in the house. They're living in a house that already has a required size septic system for the house they're living in. If they rent a room, I'm sure they'll have one parking space on their driveway. Nobody's partying in the house when they're there. So you probably don't have to worry about anything. So why have an ordinance that even addresses that particular issue? It's no different than me inviting my brother-in-law and sister to come visit with me for the weekend, except when they come, I don't charge them. This person will charge them. But what is the difference? Zero. Now, if they sit in the backyard and make a whole lot of noise, police can come, but the odds of that happening are small. Now let's talk about the 30-day rental. I'm renting my house for the month of August. I'm going to get around your ordinance very simply. I'm going to rent it for 32 days. Goodbye.
So the reason, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to explain the reason for the 30-day. So the reason we use 30 days to signify something as a short-term rental is because after 30 days, tenancy rights can accumulate. And that's why we have that cutoff that might seem arbitrary, but that's the reason behind why it's called short-term rental. Because after 30 days, then arguably it's a landlord-tenant relationship.
I understand. I've been practicing law since 1967. And I was the former town attorney of the village town of Mount Kisco. That is correct. But then you put a little clause in the lease that says for every day you stay over, it's $500. Very few people are going to test that. They're going to get out in the 32nd day. There's always a gimmick that one can apply to get around these kinds of situations. The more important thing is, why do we want to not fly under the radar? As the gentleman who spoke before, the young lady spoke, who said she was old, she's not. Once you advertise this, you open up a floodgate that you may absolutely regret. If you fly under the radar and you deal with the problems, the few that seem to come up, and it's few relative to the total number of people that live in this community, right? You tighten up a regulation to make the judges happy. Now, again, going back to the judges, the ordinance, as I read it, calls for a 3-board panel to enforce something if there's a violation. I haven't done the research, but I don't think that's enforceable under the town law. That's why you have a justice court. So now you're going to have an ordinance that somebody's going to attack as being illegal. I fought a similar ordinance against the town of North Castle when they tried to do exactly that with an ordinance regarding my alarm system. And I beat them solid. So I think you need to rethink this whole thing. Deal with the little few problems that you have and don't make just a mountain out of a molehill or an accident looking for a place to happen. Thank you.
Just for a point for clarification. So would your point is that you don't have an issue with short-term rentals if the owner has to be on site? So a rental of a bedroom you wouldn't have an issue with?
No. What I said was that this ordinance doesn't deal with the two types of rentals. One rental could be where the landlord is only renting out a bedroom. The other type of rental could be where the landlord is renting out the entire house, and you're treating them both exactly the same way. If someone is just renting out a room in their house, leave it alone, stay away from it. What's the big deal? And if someone is renting a whole house, It seems to me it could be a big deal, but from what I hear from the officials in the town, meaning the police department, it doesn't seem to be a problem of any magnitude. The problem in the court is a different problem. That's a problem of the judges trying to figure out what is it that we can do to help the town when these types of things become a problem. That, I think, is the only thing that needs to be addressed. Figure out a way to take your existing ordinances and tighten them up so the judges don't have to think too much. They can look at it and say, it's clear, you violated our ordinance. Not a 3 or 4 page thing with septic inspections and, I mean, this poor guy will be busy for doing nothing but that. And you're no longer flying under the radar. That's a big problem. Thank you.
My name's Joyce Toth. I live in Seven Hills Lake. And we've had mostly speakers who have really outlined the issues. One thing that I didn't hear mentioned was there's a recent case of an Airbnb where there was a death because they went swimming in the lake and one of the men died. And so this is another potential problem with Airbnb, is you have people thinking that it's like a safe resort, and they're, they do whatever they want. They're suing because the owner failed to apprise them of the fact that the lake had a steep drop-off. So I could think of a lot of things I could be sued for not warning people if they happen to walk onto my property by accident because it's not marked with an address. My piece down by the lake is not actually marked. I've marked that it's private property, but I don't, do I have to build like a fence with a gate to prevent people from going on my lake piece and then killing themselves by jumping off my dock? So it's just another thing to think about as far as why I personally don't want any Airbnb anywhere near my neighborhood. I had 2 houses across the street from me, constant parties. They finally sold when the town started enforcing the laws. And I was very grateful that that happened. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth DeBourbon. I also live in the Sedgwood Club community. And what I want to say is that there currently is an Airbnb in our community. I believe somebody mentioned that. And the person who lives a couple of houses down from that Airbnb has said that there is a constant stream of cars going in front of her home, and it's a tiny little dirt road, and that there are people constantly walking in front of her house. She doesn't know them, and she doesn't feel safe there. And I don't blame her for that. The second thing I want to bring up is that the home that I just described to you, the Airbnb, I have submitted in writing by email a complaint about it, and I've called Mr. Looney about it, and I have not heard back from him that whether he has received it, whether he is going to look into it, anything like that. So I guess I bring that up because if the town currently is unable to enforce what I believe to be a legitimate regulation, I certainly would never, Airbnb my house, understanding that there is this ordinance on the books. If the town can't enforce this simple mechanism or enforce a very simply written rule, ordinance, whatever, how is the town going to be able to manage an entire regimen that the town is laying out for it? So I guess that's a bit of a repetition of what other people said, but if you can't respond to a complaint that I have submitted twice, one in person, and I don't mean to rat anybody out either, how are you going to be able to manage this complicated regulatory framework?
This is my office number. Can you give me a call tomorrow morning?
Sure.
Tomorrow morning, okay? Thank you. Yep, sorry I don't have a card on me. That's the best I have.
Good evening. My name is John Muller, M-U-E-L-L-E-R. I live at 38 Bryant Trail in Carmel. I'm not here to debate whether the town should regulate short-term residences, but I do have a couple of concerns about if a statute like this was going to be enacted, that it can be effectively administered and enforced. And I would like to address specifically in the proposal that I guess was issued on July 9th, Section G, subsections 1, 2, and 3 pertaining to compliance, hearings, and penalties. And that appears to state that if there is alleged violations, it's up to residents to enforce and administer this law at first, that there's no way to come to the town with a complaint unless you first have to confront the property owner, to be knowledgeable enough of the requirements of the law to be able to request a remedy, and then determine whether whatever remedy was done meets the requirements of the law and is acceptable or not. And I think the town board should really look at providing a mechanism for residents to go directly to the town with a complaint. The town will have the expertise to determine whether there are violations, will have the expertise to determine whether proposed remedies are adequate and whether these remedies did meet the requirements of the law. The only other comment I have is about in subsection 7, the tribunal. I don't know of any other circumstance where there's something like this in the town. I think that if the town, with its expertise, determines that a permit is revoked, it would then be up to the property owner to take whatever appropriate legal action they can to challenge the town's decision. I don't think there should be a mechanism to sneak in and try to get a town official's decision overturned. That's all.
So does it say in there that the homeowner has to, because you would never tell a homeowner to approach a situation first?
We ask if they have spoken with the property owner or the property manager.
Okay.
But they could always come to the town building department. That is always an option for any property owner within the town.
What if it's a weekend?
Well, they would
Honestly,
contact the police.
Yes. I mean, that would always, no matter what it is, we always say contact the police. No, not just with this situation, with anything. We always say never approach anything yourself. Always just call.
That's not what
That's what this says.
Well, so that was just
Yes.
a rough draft. We're not.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right. So I'm just
Yes.
trying to.
Yes, as I indicated before, this board is still, there's not a local law in front of this board that's being voted on at this time.
Okay.
We're not voting tonight. It's not even
This
on
is a
there.
very rough draft. then.
Yes, yes.
It's like you just started and
No,
this was the
that's-
first one.
Honestly, I didn't even put it in the backup because I feel like we're not even going off of that. Like this is the start of it now, and we're taking everything into account starting now. So no, so that's why it wasn't in the backup.
Yes, so the town board had received complaints and concerns about regulating Airbnbs. A rough draft of a local law was put together based upon what other municipalities have used in the regulation of Airbnbs. At that time, residents had expressed concerns about Airbnbs or short-term rentals in general, and this board was looking for input from the residents, and that's why it hasn't been put on as an official public hearing. It has been put on for discussion purposes in order for this board to take comments and determine what it wants to do moving forward.
Yes, we're not even going to schedule a public hearing yet. So this is very preliminary.
Amanda Clarisi, Lake Sagamore. I'm here as a resident, not as a member of the board. I'm also a realtor and an appraiser. I have a lot of real estate experience. I read this. It was a nice start, but it's nowhere near what it needs to be. I'm not a proponent for this short-term rental. I'm not looking for that accident you're talking about, because it takes the snap of my fingers to happen, and I don't need a lawsuit along with the rest of my neighbors, because that's going to be on me and my lake association. As far as the environmental impact, that same snap of the finger is how long it takes for the boat that they're going to put in there that has something from another lake on it to infest the lake
that feeds the New York City Reservoir and everything going south. So while this was a good start, I think there needs to be a lot more restrictions if it's even going to be considered. I'm not a fan of considering it, but I know that you have to consider all aspects of it. So if you're going to consider it, it really needs a lot more looking into. The liability for me is huge. As someone said, people come up to rent, they don't care. They're here for 3 days, and my concern is the enforcement of all these rules. Are we having a Saturday, Sunday building inspector? Because Mr. Walters is going to be working overtime. You're going to need 3 more building inspectors to keep track of all of the complaints that are coming in. The timeliness of it. If there's an incident going on, do I have to wait till Monday to call and talk to somebody in the building department when they just infected the lake, or they dove off the dock and cracked their head open and now they're paralyzed or dead? One of the, I don't know if you have a list, have this, what you've written, a copy of what you've written, the proposal?
We don't, I didn't even put it in the agenda for the board, from the backup, there, we don't have it because I feel like we're starting over.
Okay. All right, well, there's some words missing, like, if I'm correct, Getz, we're not in a homeowners association, we're in a lake association. That word is missing. So the little things that are nuances that might not be thought of, we're not a homeowners association, we're a lake association. So things like that needed to be added to the wording. Liability insurance, huge. New York State, the one that, the proposal that was signed, or that was passed by the Senate that's sitting on Governor Hochul's desk, it has a insurance amount in it nowhere near sufficient, in my opinion. And if the town of Kent doesn't do something prior to the signature, if I'm understanding this correctly, that those people will have to register with the state of New York, not with the town of Kent. So if you want to have a short-term rental, you're going to register with the state of New York, and you're going to have no say in it. So. Sorry, I did this at work. Is there going to be a committee of resident input or suggestion from local professionals or people in the legal world?
I mean, any comments are always welcome to my office or the town clerk's office. We haven't even discussed having a committee and, anything like that. This is just really preliminary.
Okay.
I think after the discussion tonight, I'm sure that the board will consider it, and then will likely authorize some draft of a new local law to take into account what they've decided after discussion. And then at that point, if a public hearing is scheduled, the board can consider it whether or not a committee needs to be formed at that point.
I guess the point is, before you get to a public, vote, this needs to be revamped a lot.
As been stated, this was a first draft, and the board has already stated that they are likely to go in an entirely different direction. than
Yes,
the
and I guess my
draft that
point
was
is,
put
are you
out.
going to take resident input into the specifics of what should be changed?
Well, of course, that's why we're having the discussion and everything.
So should I spell them out and hand it in?
Yes.
Okay.
If you want to, it's probably better if you email it to the town clerk, correct? Because then she can distribute it to the whole board.
But if you have it tonight, I can scan it.
It's not in a format that's legible by anybody else but me. Thank you.
So, may I just interrupt for a second? I'm looking at the text of the Assembly Bill 4130A, 4130A. Is that the bill that you're talking about that is coming in? Or that might be signed? Regulates short-term residential rentals?
Sorry, I got a bum finger.
Yeah, because I guess what I would like to understand is the implications for the town. What I'm hearing is that if action is not taken by the town, that then anything we do would be superseded by...
No, I think it had something to do with registration. So if as I'm reading it, and I'm not a lawyer, as far as what I read, if the town doesn't put into place their own requirements and the state passes it, unless they opt out altogether, those looking for short-term rentals will have to register with New York State. New York State is only passing this because of the huge increase during COVID and all of the people fleeing the city, wanting to go here, there, and everywhere, and they just want their money. They don't care about much else. They just want to collect the money, the sales tax and the lodging and the tax, any tax they can get on this.
Yeah, I see that it's being lauded by industry groups and tourism groups and so forth. I've been looking while we've been talking, but I would like to understand this...
They missed the mark. I mean, this should have been 3 years ago. They could have made a killing on it.
But I'm trying to understand where in here it says that that there's an opt-out provision.
Bear with me. I'll look through this and find it.
Jamie, do you know anything about this?
I don't know the particulars of it. My understanding is it's not something that has passed yet, but of course we'll look into it. If there's an opt-out provision, then that's something that we'll bring in front of the board before, you know, that time frame has expired.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Judy Rosenbaum, and I live at Sagamore Lake. I'm a resident, but also on the board. I don't want to reiterate what everybody's already said, since I think it's pretty clear what a lot of us think, but I am grateful that you are using this evening as a chance to take comments, and that you're going to give serious consideration to everything we're saying. I now understand that it really was a draft, and that I hope, as Amanda said, that you might consider including professionals in various areas in your committee and residents, you know, of the community. A couple of things that I don't think came up this evening were, in my mind, I know that property value was a big one, and I feel strongly about that because I think we all, you know, bought our land or our homes with the idea that it was going to be, you know, a peaceful, at least on Lake Sagamore, a very clean lake, a very peaceful environment, et cetera. And that would change drastically, and that would affect the property value in the future if we wanted to sell our homes. I also have to wonder if you've considered that a lot of the lake communities have their own bylaws that are often, as in the case of our community, based on the deeds. In our community, for example, Leland Ryder, who owned all that property before it became individual homes, the deed included the fact that there could only be single one-family homes, there could be no commercial enterprises, and that the use of the lake was limited to the homeowners and their guests. Those are just a few of the things that are in the deed. So my concern is also that this proposal might in a sense be or it's a question, would it be overriding the existing bylaws that our community and many other communities have? And how would we deal with that as a lake association? Because when the people bought their property, they saw the deed. In most cases. I know my father did when he bought 80 years ago. And it seems like it would be in conflict. So while you're doing your discussion and research, I think it's important that you find out what kind of deed restrictions and bylaws are already out there in a lot of these communities and how this might conflict with it and make it very difficult for the residents and the lake associations or homeowners associations to respond when there are issues.
So I can answer that. The town can't pass an ordinance that would override your private covenants and restrictions on your deeds. So it would not override, it would not supersede that. And in the draft, even though as we said, that draft was just a first starting point and the board is likely going in an entirely different direction, it specifically said that you have to acknowledge that there aren't any covenants and restrictions to bring people's attention to the fact that you cannot override those covenants and restrictions based upon whether or not short-term rentals were permitted in the town in general.
I think, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that, but I also worry it's sort of the letting the cat out of the bag thing, that there are going to be people who are going to try to do it anyway, and then that leaves the lake community and the lake association in the position of having to, you know, pay money, or have the lake association pay money, it's the same thing, to sue their neighbors or hire lawyers to show that it's in conflict, and that, you know, when it just opens up a real can of worms in a really messy situation. And I don't know if it's possible, but while you're considering if there's any way to look at, I mean, personally, I think 30 days is enough if somebody's goal is that they want to make some money off their house because taxes are high. I don't think they need to do it every night or every weekend. I think 30 days seems quite fair. But I also wonder if lake communities could get an exclusion if the community chose to, because of all of the things that were mentioned, especially the environment and property value. I'm talking about private lake communities. I can't really speak for the public lake communities, but it's just, you know, maybe people feel differently in a non-lake community. I don't know, but as has been stated, Kent Lakes is primarily a lake community. So, thanks.
Well, the board could determine that certain zoning districts, short-term rentals are permitted in, and other zoning districts
And
they're
can
not.
we completely eliminate all lake, you know, whatever, you know, whatever the different names are, associations?
It can be done. It would have to be clear, you know, the basis on what you're doing it. You'd need at least mapping, things of that nature, so it's not just a general statement that is unclear on where that is and
Right.
where it would pertain to.
Okay.
Could it be based on the number of feet from a water body, for example?
Certainly. We would want to make it, of course, as clear as possible, because we don't want to have the building inspector have to go out and try to take measurements to the justice court to get in front of the justice courts. But there, of course, is a way to do it, and the clearer it is, the more likely it can be enforced without additional issues on the problem.
Hi, Elizabeth DeBourbon again. I want to echo what Julie was saying, to thank you all for taking our concerns extremely seriously and giving this so much thought and careful consideration. I know it comes from the right place, but as you consider whether to move forward with some sort of amendment to the existing zoning code, one, that the zoning code currently, if I read it correctly, and I'm not an attorney either, if I read it correctly, there is a prohibition against residences being used for commercial reasons. And it would seem to me that, you know, short-term rentals for fewer than 30 days could be interpreted as that quite easily. Second of all, as you consider this, I mean, much of the lake districts or lake areas lie within the watershed. I mean, so much of the city's watershed. So I wonder if DEP would want to weigh in or would have some sort of superseding position or something like that might forbid this. I don't know if any other towns, you know, up in the Catskills or something have run up against this, if towns have been considering ordinances like this.
So Pauling and Putnam Valley, those are the two that I know that have recently passed short-term rental laws.
Okay, I don't know to what extent the either.
So Jamie would know better about Pauling and Putt Valley. I know that Jackie passed it, but I'm not sure what theirs says.
I know in Pauling, there was a lot of issues with short-term rentals, specifically on the lakes as well. And that the regulation has actually weeded out a lot of those short-term rentals. A lot of the properties that were used for short-term rentals after the regulations were passed are no longer used for short-term rentals. There's still, of course, it is something that needs to be enforced, and it is, as you've pointed out, a long processing for the permits. So that is something, you know, that they've actively taken into account, and their local law has a number of requirements on anyone who moves in who wants to operate a short-term rental. So it puts a large burden on the property owner to be approved and to be permitted.
Sure, understood. I just also wonder, you know, if DEP or the city could get involved or would have some sort of position that would have to be considered. I'm just throwing it out there as you consider this. And then the other thing, considering that there's a law in the books right now that says you can't use your home for commercial reasons. So, like, I couldn't, operate a barber shop or something in my house.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Thanks.
And I understand your point on it, but at the same time, if you consider all residential use that's rented, commercial, then any rentals of your property for a residential purpose, even a year-long lease would be technically commercial.
so there has to be some sort of clarification.
Yeah.
So may I interrupt one more time? Because I've looked at the draft legislation that's been out there, but I hadn't gone back and drilled into our own code to see what it says, other than the provision that boarding houses are not a permitted use. Is that all we have?
Yes.
And where is the definition of boarding houses in the code? Because I've been looking for that.
It's in the zoning code, and I don't know if there is a very specific definition. I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah, so we're not really defining what a boarding house is. We just say you can't have them.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Diane Waller again. I thought that was very interesting what you said about, if you have, if you're near a lake, maybe that would be better for our purposes in our community, as opposed to sort of tying it to a homeowners association, because as I said, we can't enforce it. Just know that there are houses in our community that are very far away from the lake, but they still have lake access in their deeds. So just if you're thinking about drafting, I just want to bring that up. And the other thing is that I'm not so sure that I understand the point that you made about the two different types of Airbnb. I don't know if I would, if you're going to have to say something about this and you pick 30 days, then I think it should apply to anything. Because again, as I said, people share docks, so then that would mean that every day, every week, even if the individual who we don't know is staying in somebody's house, they can come and use your shared dock. So again, it's the same philosophy. I haven't really thought it all out because I just heard it, but I just bring that up. So there you go.
I had a question for you. We were just talking about restrictions on businesses. And I don't know, are they in the code?
So the zoning code provides what the permitted uses in every zoning district are, and a use that's not explicitly permitted is prohibited.
Okay, well, in our deed in Sagamore, it also states that you're not allowed to have business within our deed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's even more restrictive, isn't it?
Yes, and as I stated before, the town, in passing a local law, would not be superseding the deeds in your...
I just wanted to
Yes.
hear that from somebody in legal.
Yes, yes. So your private covenants are not superseded by town zoning laws.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I just wanted to ask, it's obvious so far anyway that all of the residents that have come here tonight are very agitated and oppose this short-term rental legislation completely. But have you, I know you've received some letters and emails from people from our communities voicing our discontent and opposition. Have you received much letters or feedback from the town residents supporting this notion?
Yes, two.
Versus how many?
That's not true. So one came in here, one spoke on it positively, and then I received one letter supporting it, so.
I think it's kind of obvious, the sentiment of the community, and so it seems like the direction that you may want to look into is strengthening or clarifying the existing zoning code so that the judges can act appropriately, increasing the fines so that there's some real teeth in the zoning code that prohibits rentals shorter than 30 days, and if necessary, fining the booking agencies, as opposed to the homeowners, the booking agencies for advertising rentals shorter than 30 days. That may give the town all the teeth it needs to prevent this from overcoming our community and opting out from the state legislation should it ever pass. Certainly we have some extremely talented people at our lake, Sagamore, that will be willing to work with the town board on any kind of working group. and we offer whatever help we can provide.
So I'm going to say something as a resident, not as the town supervisor. I don't live in a lake community. I have young children, and I don't want an Airbnb on my road. You know, I just don't. You don't know what comes with it and stuff, you know. This is just something that we need to address. However, whatever direction we address it in, it needs to be addressed. So
Understood.
I wish we lived in a lake community, but we don't.
Thank you.
On the other hand, before we close the book on this, I mean, frankly, if I were a resident who was doing this at my home and wanted to come, I'd be intimidated about saying it in front of this group, right? But there are residents who are doing this, and they may be silent about it because they're doing it quietly, and they might not want to draw attention to themselves and have a visit from the building inspector. There are people who are struggling to afford their homes and pay their taxes. And if they could have that extra income, especially retirees who are trying to stay in Kent despite the taxes, the school taxes, you know, perhaps we should look at whether there's a way to make that available in a very restricted manner. And I think it's only fair that we take a look at that if there's a way to do it that protects the lake communities, that protects the lakes. And I'm very concerned about invasive species and water quality and all of those things. I mean, that's my bailiwick, right? So if we were to take a look at this, I think we'd have to look at whether there's a way to do it that wouldn't allow it in places where, you know, people would have lake rights and be using the lakes and that kind of thing.
So, Ann,
that's the only thing I would consider.
And I will tell you
Personally.
that the 2 positive comments that we received on it, they were people that did not live here. They purchased the house for the purpose of Airbnb-ing their house. It wasn't because...
Wow. Thank you for telling
you know,
us that.
maybe they did come up and use it,
Yeah.
but it wasn't their home that they then had to rent out because they couldn't afford. I know our taxes are high. That's an argument for a different day, but it wasn't that people were renting out their house because they couldn't afford their taxes. They bought this house with the expectation that they were going to rent it on Airbnb, maybe themselves come up here and there, but it was not it was their second home or whatever, not their...
But the other category of use that this gentleman described does take place because I happen to know who the people are. That I was looking at one
I
example.
read their reviews. They have really good reviews. I almost wanted to stay there at that house.
Yeah, so, and again, these are people that are living in the home. So
Yes.
I think absentee landlords, people who don't live in the community, you know, is not something we would want to see if we were doing this at all. And again, you know, I may be getting a lot of reaction for even expressing this, but I think we have to take a look at all sides of the issue and come to consensus about what's best for our town. So,
Right, and so to your point.
for those 2 people out there, I certainly am going to advocate for us looking at it carefully.
But in all seriousness and in all sincerity, then maybe there is some sort of tax reduction. If the property taxes have become overly burdensome to the people who feel that they need to in order to pay their tax bill, perhaps they could seek some sort of reduction in taxes or get some sort of, you know, mercy from the town.
We recently did raise the threshold for certain categories of individuals to get some break on their taxes, but there's not much that we can do about the school taxes, and I just got sticker shock from my bill, so, you know, this is a concern that the town can't just sort of magic that away.
Understood.
For people, much as we would like to.
John Muller, Mueller, 38 Bryant Trail, Carmel. Just to clarify, not everyone here tonight is opposed to the town regulating short-term rentals. I don't have a position on it. My concern is if the town is going to enact a law, that it be constructed so that it can be effectively administered and enforced. That's my concern.
One quick last thing. I understood exactly what you said, but I asked this question. Is this truly a real problem, or is it somewhat de minimis? If it's de minimis, maybe sometimes less law is more law. Leave it alone. Find out what needs to be tightened up so the judges are happy and tighten it up, and leave the rest alone.
Anyone else? Okay. So,
I just have a question. Sorry, I just have a question. I'm just wondering, for you, you know, keeping in mind the law that's on Governor Hochul's desk. I'm wondering sort of what the next steps are and when we can expect there to be an open debate again, or
Once
how
all
that
of
works.
our heads stop spinning from all the information that we've got. Jamie, will you look into the Governor Hochul, what's on her desk?
Of course.
And seeing what's going on with that. And then, I mean, we can put it on the next board meeting.
Do you have a timeline in mind? Not really?
We don't. This was, we really don't. So, but I think we need to find out first what's going on in the state, and then we'll have a better idea for a timeline.
Yeah, if there's some kind of deadline to opt out
Yes,
that we don't know
if
about.
there's a deadline, obviously,
That's gonna-
sooner rather than later, but right now we don't have a deadline. Yes.
I guess in your statement, is there an option that we can do the bare minimum to tighten the zoning up so that we don't have to
Well, that's
go
what this,
into a full-blown writing of law?
that this board is gonna make a determination, on what they think would be appropriate for the town, and that determination could be anything from regulation of certain types of short-term rentals, outright banning short-term rentals, or permitting them by a permitting procedure, or permitting them in certain areas. So there's a lot of,
Can we change just like verbiage in the current town code?
you could outright ban short-term rentals.
Or could we define, what was it, boarding house? Is that what it says in there? Could we define it as, so that way?
In such a way that it encompasses short-term rentals,
Mhm.
you certainly can. Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, there's always that one person that just finds the loophole, So I like the absolute, but I know I'm asking for a lot.
I'm not saying we're just taking that way. I'm just
No,
trying to.
I guess that you answered the question. I mean, if you chose to, you could say emphatically, there's no short-term rentals in the town of
A boarding house is
Kent,
considered a short-term rental, anything less than 30
period,
days.
and it's enforceable. Is that
I'm
correct?
looking at our town attorney, so because.
Yeah, you're permitted to not to prohibit short-term rentals within the town, and that can be done. Obviously, enforcement always takes facts, so just saying in your code that a short-term rental, you still have to have the facts to support that somebody was doing a short-term rental in order to go in front of the justices and establish your case there. But you can, in your code, outright prohibit short-term rentals.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Like, is it as simple as one statement of, it is
I
prohibited?
guess it potentially could be.
It
Okay.
potentially could be, it would still have to be a local law.
Thank you.
But-
Which it basically is now.
Yes,
Just with very little definition.
yes. It's an older code provision that it hasn't come up as an issue until current years, is what it is.
Right. Okay. Everyone's good? Okay, moving on.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming.
Let's let everyone leave now.
Thank you.
Did so well.
No problem.
Just give me a second to see it. Oh, people's good. Oh. All right, moving on. Our next item is from our Lake Carmel Park District Advisory Board. They are asking us to remove a member for non-participations in their meetings. According to their bylaws, if you've missed 3 consecutive monthly meetings, then they can vote to remove you, and that's what the board has done. So I'm asking that we just remove someone from the Lake Carmel Park District Advisory Board. Does someone want to, Ann, do you want to read it? Do you have it?
Oh, is there actually a resolution?
I think so.
I just saw the background. Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Thanks.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution for the removal of Lake Carmel Park District Advisory Board members. Whereas members of the Lake Carmel Park District Advisory Board, LCPDAB, are appointed at the pleasure of the town board and may be removed at any time with or without cause. And whereas the bylaws of the LCPDAB call for the removal of any member who has missed 3 consecutive monthly meetings. And whereas the town board is in receipt of a recommendation from the chairperson of the LCPDAB for the removal of a certain member who has missed 3 consecutive meetings, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby accepts the recommendation of the chairman and removes a member of the Lake Carmel Park District Advisory Board for failure to comply with the requirement of attending monthly meetings. I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have some items for the CAC. They are asking us to accept a resignation. Let me just, I think it's all in one.
Courtney Steininger?
Yep, I'm just trying to see if it's all in one, thing. Okay, well, so we're accepting a resignation, we're appointing a new member, and we're also advertising for the open spots on the CAC tonight.
Kent Conservation Advisory Committee? Kent Conservation Advisory Committee.
But it's the CAC.
Right, Conservation Advisory
Yes.
Committee.
KCAC, but it's the CAC. That's, sorry. So that's what we're doing tonight.
I just want to say we're sorry to see Courtney go. She's moving out of the community, and she's done a lot for us while she's been here. We wish her well. And if you want, I will go ahead and read this.
Yep.
Okay, so I make a motion to adopt a resolution accepting a resignation, appointing a member, and authorizing the town clerk to advertise for the position of Conservation Advisory Committee member. Whereas the town of Kent has received notice that Courtney Steininger wishes to resign as a member of the Conservation Advisory Committee, CAC, and whereas by email dated August 27, 2024, Bill Volkman, the CAC chair, has recommended the appointment of Dennis Oak to the CAC, and the town board wishes to appoint Mr. Oak to the CAC, and whereas the town of Kent wishes to authorize the town clerk, Yolanda D. Capelli, to advertise for applications to fill any remaining vacancies on the Conservation Advisory Committee, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Kent hereby accepts the resignation of Courtney Steininger and thanks her for her service to the town. Be it further resolved, the town board hereby appoints Dennis Oak as a member of the CAC for a term expiring December 31st, and I hope you know the year.
2027.
2027, thank you, Lana. And be it further resolved that the town board authorizes its town clerk, Yolanda D. Capelli, to advertise for applications to fill the vacancies on the CAC. I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thanks.
I make a motion. Yes?
This is Dennis O'Keefe. I don't know what I wanted to show.
Hi.
Oh.
I missed the last meeting, so I didn't get to meet you. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis O'Keefe, and yeah, I'm used to being called Hoke, so.
Oh, sorry.
It is what it
Okay.
is.
My apologies.
Yeah. No, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm new in town, and I'm happy to be with you guys and to lend my helping hands, if possible, to some of these things that you do. My background, I have so many background. I have my degrees in environmental engineering. I've worked in Western New York, precisely city of Rochester, as secretary to the Rochester Preservation Board. I'm kind of used to all this discussion. I wasn't prepared for this, for the discussion on short-term renters, but I was in this situation exactly a year ago in the city of Rochester considering short-term renters. So I have some opinions, and I will forward my opinions to you guys if you can help in formulating your zoning code. I was a senior zoning analyst with the city of Rochester for about 1.5 years, and currently I work with DEP, and kind of, if you need me for anything, advice, help beyond the CAC, I'm here to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I may be getting in touch with you about our open space committee. Yes.
I was going to say the same thing. I got a pretty good resume. Mine pales in comparison.
Yeah, I've been around a lot and schooled a lot too, and it is what it is. So I moved here about 3 months ago with my wife, and I'm here to stay and see how I can help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And one thing you'll need to do is to sign the book, right, with an oath of office, and Lana will help you with that. Thank you.
She doesn't have the book with her, you don't have it.
No.
So, but at some point you'll have to sign you'll have to take the oath of office with Lana and sign the book. Okay? I make a motion to add an item to the agenda to repairs to machines. Second.
What is it for?
To repairs to machines.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So it was brought to my attention today that in recreation, one of our lawnmowers, the cutter deck is not working properly, and we can't cut the lawns at the fields and up here, so we need to replace that deck for $1,300.55. And then it was also brought to my attention from Lake Carmel Park District that that a side transmission has an internal issue and will need replacement, and they have to do some work on it for a total of, to one of the trucks, for a total of $2,285.68. So we're gonna approve those tonight so that we can get the work done. I'm just gonna wing a resolution, if everyone's good with that.
Yep.
I make a motion to accept a quote from Brady's for the Town of Kent Recreation Department for a cutter deck for a total of $1,355, and for the Town of Kent Lake Carmel Park District for a internal issue with the transmission for a total of $2,285.68, both for Brady's Power Equipment. I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I make a motion to add an item for our EMS.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I invite there's Alex. I don't know if you're still here. I invite our EMS coordinator up here to discuss. We had we had approved a bid for repairs at the substation, and unfortunately, when they started working, they found some other issues, so I'm gonna let you explain.
Hi, everybody, I'm Alex. I'm your local EMS coordinator. You an EMT? You want to help? You were up here, I heard you say, everyone heard him, I'll do whatever it takes, right? Yeah, no? So, per the way this town does things, I got 3 bids to do the work over at the substation. Mr. Jim Liebler came in with the lowest bid, and he submitted all the documentation that I brought in front of Jamie, and Jamie brought it in front of everybody here, and everybody voted on it, and it was $14,300. And we said, that's a great price. It came in significantly lower than the other bids. When we got into the building and started to do the demolition, we realized that there was some black mold. So we could have gone one route, which would have been to just fix what we saw and leave the rest there. But that didn't seem like a good idea, especially since we're the ones who are going to be out saving the world. We didn't want to have any black mold in our lungs while doing that. So we began to take down more doors, more walls, more insulation. And as we did that, we then realized that we were going to have to put it back together again. And that was going to cost us additional labor. So I'm here tonight because the price of $14,300 has now been increased to $16,130, and I need approval to pay the man for all of his love and support and getting rid of the mold.
Okay. Any board comment?
So you're just saying a differential that it's going up by 2,130?
Less than that, because I'm sorry, the resolution is incorrect. The original total was $14,300.
Okay.
And now it's going up to $16,130.
Okay.
So
it's a very...
$1,630.
Yeah, 16,000. So it's a small increase.
To get rid of the black mold.
Great. Yes, the black mold.
Okay. Does someone want to read the resolution?
Sure.
Are you good?
Oh, yeah. I'm
Any
good.
public comment?
Make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing emergency work for the Town of Kent Emergency Services Department substation. Whereas by resolution dated August 6, 2024, the Town Board of the Town of Kent accepted a proposal, James Liebler, Inc., in the overall amount of, is it $14,300? $14,300 for the completion of certain renovations in connection with the Town of Kent Emergency Service Substation, the project. And whereas by email dated September 3rd, 2024, Alex Roner, EMS coordinator, informed the town that in the process of moving forward with the project, certain additional work needed to be made to the substation on an emergency basis. A copy of said email is annexed hereto and incorporated herein by reference. And whereas the town board wishes to accept and ratify the additional work performed by James Liebler, Inc. in the overall amount of $16,130, which number includes the previously approved proposal, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Kent hereby accepts the quote of James Liebler, Inc. to complete the substation renovation and emergency additional work for an overall cost of $16,130. And be it further resolved that the town board of the town of Kent hereby approves and ratifies all acts heretofore taken by the town board, town supervisor, EMS coordinator, and any and all other town officials in connection with this emergency work. I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You can go home now.
Oh.
The NRI?
Yeah, I make a motion to add one more item to the agenda, the NRI interactive mapping.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want to?
Yes, so as you know, we recently completed a natural resources inventory, and we were very interested in having an interactive map website. You can look, for example, what the town of Gardner has. You can go onto that story map website, dial in where you live or the parcel you're interested in, and see all of the different maps from their natural resources inventory, wetland maps, soil maps, geology, all of that. For specific parcels, and you can click the different layers on and off. This is something that can be done with geographic information systems by somebody who knows how to do web design. And we've gotten a number of different estimates for this, and the most cost-effective approach is a quote that we got from the web designer who created our Climate Smart website, Jasper Katzban, and the quote is for $3,000, which is about a factor of 3 to 6 lower than the other quotes we received. So I'd like to go ahead and go with that and get that mapping tool done. So, any comment? Yes?
You have to come, sorry, you have to come up to the microphone or else they can't hear you.
What are you using it for?
So the natural resources inventory documents many of the resources and natural features of the town. And so it's of use to landowners, developers, planning board members, town board members. We've had some workshops on this, and we're planning to have more once this tool is developed. So, you could see on your parcel, for example, where are there steep slopes? What are the nearby water bodies? Where are we with respect to the watershed? Things that would affect regulations that relate to your property, or if you're planning some kind of a project or development, you would have information that's necessary for that. And it would help planning board members, assess conditions on a particular parcel and decide, for example, if an additional species inventory, rare species inventory is needed or things like that.
There's one available for free.
I beg your pardon?
There's one available for free.
The natural resources inventory?
The National Wetlands.
As a PDF is available on the town website.
The National Wetlands Mapper.
It includes wetlands maps, yes.
Yeah, this is an overlay of everything.
I beg your pardon?
It's an overlay of everything.
Well, right now, we don't have it as a map, as an interactive tool. We have the maps as GIS shapefiles.
Yeah, you can go on the internet.
And we have the PDF document that you can go and look, but you can't zoom in on your specific property and really see up close exactly where I am, what is going on with these different map layers. So that's the point of this interactive tool that we want to develop that will be web-based, that anybody can use.
Has anyone looked at the National Wetland Mapper?
The national weapon, that was incorporated into the natural resources inventory. They gathered all kinds of data that were already available before that document was developed.
Okay. I use it for my work, and it's more than sufficient. So I'm just recommending it. I'm not suggesting, I'm suggesting you take a look at it before you spend the money on is this an annual subscription or one time?
The natural resources inventory was developed during this past year, and I suppose at some time in the future we might want to update it, but it's a pretty comprehensive overview of conditions in the town, many of which will not be expected to change in the future.
Is it a one-time charge or is it an annual subscription?
There's no subscription for it. It's available on the web.
So it's one time.
But this $3,000 is a one-time.
It's once.
Oh, that's what you're asking. Yes, this would be a one-time cost to develop this tool.
And
then-
was this not covered by a grant?
We were talking about putting it on ARPA.
Right.
If necessary, we have other funds we could use.
Okay.
So I'm sorry I misunderstood your question.
No
but
worries.
Yes, it's a one-time.
Look, if it's available out there for free, why would anybody pay for it?
Well, again, this tool is not available for free yet. This is what we want to develop. The document and maps are available in a PDF form.
Okay.
But the interactive website has not been developed. We would like to have one like the one that the town of Gardner has. If you'd like to see what that looks like, you can go to the town of Gardner's website and click on their NRI and see their mapping tool.
Great,
That's what we're trying to develop. And again, it would be a one-time charge of $3,000. Thanks for the question. Any other comments? All right, I will read this one. So I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution to accept a proposal for interactive mapping for the NRI. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Kent would like to expand its natural resources inventory, NRI, to include interactive mapping, and whereas consistent with the town's procurement policy, the Town Board solicited and received 3 proposals for expanding the NRI to the online ArcGIS story map, and whereas Lunar Edge Holdings SLLC submitted the lowest bid in the amount of $3,000, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Kent hereby accepts the proposal of Lunar Edge Holdings SLLC for a total cost not to exceed $3,000. I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. This is going to really be great. Yeah, let's vote.
Since Chris isn't here, I guess I'll take his vouchers. I ask the board to approve the following vouchers that are over the threshold for September 3rd. Arkell Motors, $6,361.81 for truck parts. Barton and LaJudas, $11,948.56 for the Needham Road culvert. $5,823.69 for the Lake Carmel FEMA. Gabrielli Truck Sales, $4,316.27 for truck parts. Global Montello Group, $4,881.89 for gas and $5,026.52 for gas. Intercounty Paving Company, $270,415.74, paving Gypsy Trail Road. Kevin Irwin, $10,422, March through July prosecutor. Meadowlands of Carmel, $3,774.73 for auto parts and $5,840.11. NYSEG, $2,009.75 for electric for Ryan's Field, $4,493.49 for electric for the police department. Pitney Bowes Reserve Account, $3,000 for postage. Riverview Industries, $14,619.72 for a dump truck repair. Laura Roberts, $3,150 for the August prosecutor. Transaxle, $6,816.49 for truck parts. VRI Environmental Services, $9,980, grinder pump for the sewer district. Wind Waste, $9,764.28 for Lake Carmel garbage. $13,401.01 Lake Carmel garbage. $9,551.85 for Lake Carmel garbage. $10,014.58 for Lake Carmel garbage. James Liebler, Inc., $16,130 repairs for the EMS substation. I ask the board to approve as read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Couple of announcements. As everyone probably knows, school's back in session today, the next few days. So the Kent Police will be having a crackdown on speeding for the next few weeks in the town of Kent, as well as making sure people are not going around the buses when the buses are stopped. So be alert for that. Also exciting news, we have started the Broken Bridge, the work there to repair it at the Veterans Memorial, and the work is underway, and we are anticipating it to be completed by the end of October. I have one more, but Madeline, do you want me to do it? Or do you want to come up and do it? You do it? Yes. Well, you're here still, so I figured... want me to hold the flyer? I'll hold the flyer while you...
Perfect. Thank you. So Lake Carmel residents are welcome to join the Silent Blue Light Vigil, a 9/11 tribute in which walkers and boaters in unison will make their way towards the Lake Carmel Memorial on Terry Hill Road. Flags and blue lights will be provided. The Kent Police Department and Kent Fire Departments will stand guard and wait for the procession, and upon arrival, we will ring the bell of hope. Let's stand together. Let's stand together, light the lake blue in honor of those who perish, and we'll never forget. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm sorry, does anyone have any announcements?
I always do.
I know, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Well, Kent Community Day,
Yes, okay, you would do that one.
Saturday
Okay.
the 14th, right, noon to 3.
Yes, noon to 3.
And I want to mention...
Oh, wait, I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but since our farmer's market was such a success this summer, we've invited our farmer's market vendors to come to Kent Community Day as well. So it's Kent Community Day with the little twist of a farmer's market. Sorry, thank you.
Great. Also, we're working...
And it's going to be in the thing here.
Yeah.
So they know.
Yeah.
It's not in the thing here, in the courtyard outside.
Yeah. Yes, and we're working on a plan to develop proposals for making walking and cycling in town safer and more pleasant for residents, and we need community input. We will have a table at Kent Community Day where you can give us input for how we can make this town a better place to walk and bike. But also, there's a flyer on the town website, which we're going to make more visible. There's an app you can use. You can use a QR code if you want. Let us know what's important to you, the places you like to go, where you feel safe, where you think we need improvements. The grant doesn't actually pay for those improvements, but it's a first step towards seeking funding to make improvements in the future. So I encourage you to get involved and give us that input. We'll be collecting that for about the next 2 weeks. And then I always like to mention things at the library, but there's a talk coming up by April Bezaw, an archaeologist or anthropologist from Vassar. She's been studying the impact of the development of the New York City reservoir system on 2 communities up by Ashokan and down here in Kent. She's published a book about it. She'll be talking at the Sedgewood Boathouse on Saturday the 7th, this coming Saturday, from 2 to 4. And she also has a presentation coming up at the library Wednesday, September 11th. She's going to talk about what Kent was like before all of that happened. So it's called Kent Before the Lakes, Parks, and Reservoirs. What you might not realize is most of the lakes we have were made by people. So Kent was a little bit different before all of that happened. Other great events at the library, they're starting a teen advisory board. Get your teens out there. They will feed them pizza. That's Monday the 9th at 5:30. And the library would greatly benefit from their input. And then I saw one other thing I wanted to highlight. Oh yeah, for little engineers and inventors, on Wednesday, September 18th, 4:30, the Marshmallow and Toothpick Challenge. Not supposed to eat those things, but they will be creating and engineering with those materials. It's for grades K through 4, and you do need to pre-register. And as always, I encourage you to check the library website. There's a lot more going on than what I've mentioned. Thank you.
Very good.
What I see out front, there was a sign for a walk for suicide prevention. Does anybody know more about that? I saw the signs out there. All right. Sorry. Well, I'll make sure that it gets posted on our website then.
Okay. Everyone's good up here? Public comment?
Is that here in Kent, Sean?
Yeah, there's several signs up and down 52. There was one right up front here.
And I'll find it.
Okay. That's definitely an important thing, particularly right after COVID. I've had a lot of friends, family members that have been affected by suicide in the family. And it's a tragic thing and something that's probably fairly easily preventable. This one, it's probably easy to say that, but probably it's something that's so hard to see before it happens. So anyway, we'll see what's going on with the walk for suicide prevention.
I see one for Putnam County on the 15th.
That's probably it then.
Social Services Building, 110 Old Route 6 in Carmel.
All I saw was the signs outside. So.
Yeah, starts at 9 a.m., registration at 9, walk at 10 on the 15th. So the day after Community Day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. Bill Walters, Building Inspector, Town of Kent. Just kind of a reminder, let everybody know, we've done some updating on the town webpage. We put some more information that's out there, pre-existing dates and when things changed, when permits were required, and so you really should take a look at that. We've been getting, it's that time of year where people are fixing their roofs, and we're getting a lot of contractors that are going, permits aren't needed to re-roof your shingles on your house. A permit is needed to re-roof your house. If you're going over the existing shingles, a permit's not needed. If you're taking the existing shingles off, down to the sheathing, a permit is needed. In many cases, when that was done 30 years ago, ice and water shield wasn't invented, wasn't put on, and now it's a requirement in the New York State Code. So that's one of the main reasons why we do permitting for shingles on houses. I'll try to bring more information to the board, to the public, as things change. Because we're having a big change of population. Some people think that it's their castle and they can do whatever they want. Welcome to the state of New York, where you need a permit for just about everything. And I'll try to bring that kind of information to you. While we're talking about codes, the codes will be changing, I understand, next year, January 2025. We'll be going to the 2024 building codes. Should go into effect, I believe they're talking about April 2025. They still got to teach all the inspectors and get them certified with the new codes. I understand there are some significant changes to the codes. So just to keep people aware.
Quick question, Bill. So people can re-shingle their house over the existing ones. How many layers of shingles are you allowed? So how many times?
2.
So only 2.
Only 2.
So existing.
Yeah, don't do like I did where I had 4, because then the rafters bow and break, right? 2, that's the limit.
So the original, you're allowed to put 1 on, and that's it.
That's it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Sue Kotzer, Town of Kent, Kent Recycling Center Commissioner. I presented to the town board information about a gutter system. I had 3 quotes that were provided by Janet and Evan. That was at the August 20th daytime meeting. I'm curious why it's not on the agenda tonight. And yeah, I don't like, come on. I feel like I'm on the back seat here, but so can we have approval of that project? You were all given the information on the 18th.
I'm sorry.
I have it time-stamped, or maybe it was the 19th, Alana.
Yeah. This is my fault because I
So,
did mention it and I did not resend it to Nancy.
Ann was not at the meeting. She had personal issues, so I'm leaving it up to the rest of the board. Chris Ruthven, who is not here, even questioned myself and Janet about it. And the fall is coming, and the leaves are just going to build up in the gutter, and
I'm trying to pull it up on my phone.
it's just...
Sue, my apologies. I did copy those documents when I saw you on Saturday, and then with the start of semester and everything else, I did not get those to our town attorney for tonight. That's my fault. That's
So
on
what
me.
happens now?
I'm gonna
What's
pull it
our
up
next step?
No, I'm going to pull it up right now, and we can do it
Thank
right
you.
now. I'm
Thank
just
you,
trying to pull it
Jamie.
up on my phone. It takes a little bit when it's not. Can you
Okay.
see if I only get the past few days on my cell phone, and when I have to go back and look.
Yeah, some of my notes disappear. So I understand technology. About 4
so
o'clock
just-
in the afternoon, I get nothing at home.
So just give me a minute while I try
Sure.
to
Thank you very
pull it up,
much.
because it's gonna, okay. Oh boy, and it's very small, so. And I'm getting old and I can't see.
You need these?
I don't know, maybe. Okay. So yes, we have the 3 quotes. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a resolution. Are you good with that, Ann?
Just add it.
Okay.
We're going to add.
Oh, I make a motion to add an item to the meeting for
Second.
Kent Recycling.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion, I'm sorry, bear with me, everyone. Came to saying, okay, I make a motion to hire leaf filters to fix the gutters at the recycling building for a total not to exceed $4,357. I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do you want me to forward you?
I think I have it.
Okay. All right. We good? Any other public comment?
Make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss pending litigation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Have a great night. Drive carefully. Don't pass a bus because they got cameras.
And don't speed.
They got cameras on the buses anyway, so.